What if the person you pass by every day, barely noticing, holds secrets that could change everything? What if the one you've overlooked is the key to unlocking a billion-dollar dream, or saving an empire on the brink of collapse? Picture this: a man in a driver's uniform dismissed as the help, hiding a past that once shaped global deals. This is the story of Sheldon Parsons, and it's about to turn everything you think you know upside down. The Atlanta skyline shimmered under the morning sun, a city pulsing with ambition, dreams, and secrets. Behind the wheel of a sleek black Lexus, Sheldon Parsons adjusted his tie, his eyes fixed on the road. To anyone passing by, he was just a driver, another face in the churn of Horizon Innovation's corporate machine. But Sheldon was no ordinary driver. Beneath the pressed uniform and polite nod hid a man who'd once shaped global trade deals, a polyglot with a Ph.D. from Howard University and a Yale master's fluent in 8 languages. For 20 years, he'd stood in the shadows of presidents and prime ministers, translating words that moved economies. Now he was chauffeuring Elizabeth Harper, the CEO of Horizon Innovations, a tech company teetering on the edge of collapse. Sheldon's hands gripped the wheel as Elizabeth's voice sliced through the car's quiet hum. "Don't touch the AC driver. You're here to drive, not play with my settings." Her words stung, sharp and cold, like a blade dipped in disdain. Sheldon's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He never did. 3 years of driving for Elizabeth, 3 years of biting his tongue. "Yes, ma'am," he murmured, eyes on the road. But inside his mind churned. He wasn't just a driver. He was a survivor of budget cuts that gutted his diplomatic career, of 200 job rejections that branded him overqualified or too old, at 52, of a world that looked at his black skin and saw only a uniform. Why was he here? For his son Jamal, grinding through law school at Emory, dreaming of justice for the underserved. For his wife Lena, battling lupus with hospital bills that stacked higher than hope. Sheldon had traded summit rooms for steering wheels to keep them afloat. Every morning, he swallowed the insults, the dismissal, the invisibility, because pride didn't pay for chemotherapy. But today, something felt different. The air in the Lexus crackled with tension, and it wasn't just Elizabeth's bad mood. Elizabeth's phone buzzed, her voice rising in panic as she answered. "What do you mean, no interpreters? This is a $1.5 billion deal. Richard Singapore's Tech Trend Global lands in 2 hours. And we need Mandarin, Japanese, and Hindi. Find someone, or we're done." Sheldon's ears perked up. He knew those languages like the back of his hand. He'd mediated trade summits in Tokyo, brokered deals in Beijing, calmed tensions in New Delhi. But he stayed silent, his heart pounding. Should he speak up? Risk the wrath of a woman who'd called him the help just last week? Flashback to 2019. Sheldon in a Tokyo conference room. His voice steady as he translated a heated U.S.-Asia trade negotiation. His words averted a tariff war that could have cost billions. The room applauded him, diplomats, not drivers. Back then, he was seen. Now, he was a ghost in a suit, hauling Elizabeth's coffee orders while Horizon Innovations bled money. A 2023 study flashed through his mind: 25% of black PhD holders in America like him stuck in jobs far below their skills. Systemic bias, ageism, a resume gap too wide for corporate America to leap. That's why he was here. But today, that gap was about to close. Elizabeth's voice grew shrill. "Richard, we're 3 months from bankruptcy. This merger is our lifeline. 250 jobs, my job, your job gone, if we don't nail this." Sheldon glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Her perfectly styled hair was unraveling, her hands trembling as she dialed another dead-end call. He'd heard enough boardroom secrets to know Horizon was drowning, and he knew something else he could save it. The mistake so many make. Bosses, co-workers, society is assuming the person pouring your coffee or driving your car has no story, no spark. Sheldon had spent 3 years invisible, but invisibility is a choice until it's not. He'd chosen silence to survive, but survival wasn't enough anymore. The lesson was clear: talent doesn't shout. It waits for the moment to shine. And Sheldon's moment was coming. As Elizabeth cursed into her phone, Sheldon's own buzzed in his pocket. A text from a community college HR rep. "Interview tomorrow, marketing coordinator, $28,000 a year." He'd been ready to take it, to tell Jamal to transfer schools, to admit his career was over. But then Elizabeth's voice cracked, desperate. "We're out of options." Sheldon's hand hovered over the partition button. His heart raced. This was it. He pressed the button, the glass sliding down with a soft hum. "Ms. Harper," he said, voice steady as steel, "what languages do you need?" Elizabeth's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock, as if the car itself had spoken. The road ahead stretched toward Horizon's gleaming tower, but the real journey was about to begin. Elizabeth's stunned silence filled the car as Sheldon's question hung in the air. Could a driver really hold the key to a billion-dollar deal? As Horizon's fate teetered on the edge, Sheldon was about to step out of the shadows and into a crisis that would change everything. The Lexus hummed through Atlanta's morning traffic, but inside the air was thick with panic. Elizabeth Harper's phone was a lifeline slipping through her fingers, each call a dead end in her desperate search for interpreters. "Richard, this is a $1.5 billion deal," she snapped, her voice cracking like glass. "Tech trend, global lands in 2 hours, and we need Mandarin, Japanese, and Hindi. Find someone, or Horizon." Innovations is finished. Sheldon Parsons, silent behind the wheel, felt the weight of her words. Horizon was 3 months from bankruptcy, 250 jobs, including his own, hanging by a thread. He knew the stakes. He'd heard the late-night boardroom calls, the whispered fears of collapse. But more than that, he knew the languages she needed. Every single one. Elizabeth's hands shook as she dialed another agency, her perfectly manicured nails tapping frantically. "Booked. All of them. This is unacceptable." She tossed the phone onto the seat, her breath ragged. Sheldon glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her face pale, her eyes wild, a CEO unraveling. He'd seen this before, not in a car, but in a 2018 Singapore summit, when a trade deal teetered on cultural missteps. Back then, Sheldon had stepped in his fluent Mandarin, calming a room of tense diplomats. Now he was just the driver invisible to the woman whose empire was crumbling. The truth hit hard. Horizon's failure wasn't just about money. It was about pride, legacy, and survival. Sheldon thought of his son Jamal studying late at Emory, dreaming of becoming a lawyer for the voiceless. He thought of his wife Lena fighting lupus with courage no paycheck could match. This merger wasn't just Elizabeth's fight, it was his too. A 2024 news story flashed in his mind. A tech merger tanked when a U.S. firm botched Japanese etiquette, costing 1,000 jobs. Horizon was repeating that mistake, leaning on overpriced, unavailable interpreters instead of building in-house expertise. The cause, arrogance and corner-cutting. The effect, a company on its knees. Sheldon's fingers tightened on the wheel. He'd stayed silent for 3 years, swallowing Elizabeth's dismissals, her stay in your lane, jabs, her refusal to learn his name. But silence wasn't an option now. The lesson was clear. Crises don't wait for permission, and talent doesn't stay hidden forever. Companies like Horizon bled value because they ignored the people right in front of them. Sheldon had been that ignored person, but today he'd be the solution. Elizabeth's phone rang again, a voicemail cutting through her frustration. "No one, Richard. No one's available," she hissed, pacing in the back seat like a caged lion. Sheldon's heart raced. He'd been ready to walk away to take that $28,000 marketing job and tell Jamal to transfer schools. But this moment, this crisis was bigger than his pride. He pressed the partition button, the glass sliding down with a soft whir. "Ms. Harper," he said, his voice calm but firm. "What languages do you need?" Elizabeth's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing as if he'd spoken in tongues. What she spat, disbelief dripping from the word. Sheldon held her gaze in the mirror, unflinching. "For your merger, Ms. Harper. Mandarin, Japanese, Hindi, am I right?" The car fell silent. The hum of the engine, the only sound. Elizabeth's mouth opened, then closed, her world tilting. This wasn't her driver's voice. It was steady, commanding, like a diplomat stepping onto a global stage. Before she could respond, Sheldon's phone buzzed again. Another text from the community college job offer confirmed. "Can you start Monday?" His heart sank. He'd been ready to trade his dreams for stability, to admit defeat. But as Elizabeth stared speechless, a new fire ignited. He wasn't just saving Horizon, he was reclaiming himself. "Ms. Harper," he said, voice rising with quiet authority, "I speak all 3 languages. Fluently. And I can help." Elizabeth's phone slipped from her hand, her eyes wide with shock, as the Lexus pulled into Horizon's gleaming parking garage. The car stopped, but the tension didn't. Elizabeth, still reeling, clutched her phone, unsure whether to trust the man she'd dismissed for years. Could Sheldon really be the key to saving her company? As they stepped into the elevator, the weight of the merger and Sheldon's hidden past was about to change everything. The elevator to Horizon Innovations' executive floor hummed, but the silence between Sheldon Parsons and Elizabeth Harper was deafening. Elizabeth's eyes darted to Sheldon, her mind grappling with his impossible question, "I speak all 3 languages. Fluently. and I can help." The CEO of a sinking tech empire stared at her driver, a man she'd barely acknowledged for 3 years, as if seeing him for the first time. Sheldon stood tall, his calm gaze fixed on the rising floor numbers, but inside his heart pounded. This wasn't just about saving a deal. It was about reclaiming the man he'd been before the world pushed him into the shadows. Elizabeth's phone buzzed again, the caller ID flashing Tech Trend Global. Her hand froze. "I can't answer this without an interpreter," she whispered, panic creeping back. Sheldon extended his hand through the partition, steady as ever. "May I?" Elizabeth hesitated, her pride wrestling with desperation. The phone kept ringing. Finally, she handed it over, her eyes wide with a mix of doubt and hope. Sheldon answered, his voice transforming. "Ni hao li xian sheng," he said in flawless Mandarin, his tone carrying the polished authority of a seasoned diplomat. Gone was the deferential driver. In his place stood a man who'd once brokered peace in global boardrooms. The voice on the other end responded in rapid Mandarin, laced with frustration. Sheldon listened intently, nodding his posture, shifting shoulders back, jaw set. He switched to Japanese mid-call, addressing another executive with precision. "Konnichiwa, Tanaka-san, Horizon wa Kongo no kankei o taisetsu ni shimasu." Elizabeth watched, her breath catching. He was discussing patent licensing, market strategies, and cultural protocols, with ease weaving through languages she couldn't follow. A 2022 article flashed in her mind. A former UN translator overqualified and overlooked driving taxis in Atlanta. Was Sheldon one of them? How had she missed this? The call turned heated. Sheldon covered the phone, his voice low. "There's a cultural misunderstanding, Ms. Harper. Your legal team's aggressive contract language insulted Tech Trend. They think you see them as junior partners, not equals." Elizabeth's heart sank. What kind of misunderstanding, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The kind that kills billion-dollar deals." Sheldon replied, his eyes steady. He returned to the call, his tone shifting to respectful Japanese, offering apologies that seemed to melt the tension. "I told them Horizon deeply values their legacy," he explained, "and that you've been studying Asian business customs to show respect." Elizabeth's mouth fell open. "But I haven't." Sheldon cut her off gently. "You have now." The call ended with Tech Trend's team agreeing to meet in person, the merger back on track. Elizabeth stared at Sheldon, her world spinning. "You speak 8 languages?" she asked, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. Sheldon nodded once. "Mandarin, Japanese, Hindi, Korean, Arabic, French, Portuguese, Spanish. Would you like me to demonstrate?" Before she could answer, Sheldon's phone buzzed again, a reminder of the community college job offer he'd nearly accepted. A $28,000 marketing gig, a final surrender of his dreams. But this moment, this call had changed everything. The lesson hit hard. The people we dismiss often hold the keys to our survival. Companies like Horizon bleed value because they overlook talent right under their noses. A 2024 case came to mind. A tech firm lost a $2 billion deal when their translator missed a cultural nuance offending Chinese partners. Sheldon had just saved Horizon from that fate not with a resume, but with action. The cause: years of ignoring employees like him. The effect: a company on the brink, saved by a man they'd called the Help. As the elevator doors opened to Horizon's gleaming lobby, Elizabeth's assistant rushed up, her face pale. "The Tech Trend team is early. They are in the boardroom now, and they're asking about cultural protocols." Elizabeth froze, but Sheldon straightened his driver's uniform, a quiet fire in his eyes. "I've got this, Ms. Harper," he said, stepping forward. Then, under his breath, he added, "I turned down that job offer this morning." Elizabeth's jaw dropped. Her driver had been one step from walking away, yet here he was ready to save her empire. The boardroom loomed ahead, a battlefield of high stakes and hidden biases. Sheldon was no longer just a driver. He was Horizon's secret weapon. But could he navigate a room full of skeptical executives and a demanding international delegation? As he and Elizabeth stepped toward the glass doors, the real test was about to begin. The boardroom of Horizon Innovations buzzed with a tension thicker than Atlanta's summer air. Sheldon Parsons stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, his navy suit crisp, his presence commanding. The Tech Trend global delegation had just left their respect for Sheldon sealed with a rare double-handed business card exchange. Elizabeth Harper's bold announcement still echoed. Sheldon was now Vice President of Global Strategy. But the room's energy shifted as CFO Richard Coleman leaned forward, his voice sharp with skepticism. "Elizabeth, a driver in a boardroom. What about optics? The board won't stand for this." The words landed like a slap, and Sheldon felt the familiar sting of being reduced to a job title. Elizabeth's eyes flashed, but before she could respond, Sheldon raised a hand, his voice calm yet steely. "Mr. Coleman, what specific concerns do you have about my suitability?" The room froze. Coleman blinked, caught off guard. "It's about cultural nuances, business etiquette, gift protocols, bowing seating arrangements. This is a billion-dollar merger, not a diversity experiment." Sheldon nodded unfazed. "You mean omiyage protocols for Japanese executives, precise ray angles for seniority, and Zaseki positioning based on founding dates, not revenue." Silence swallowed the room. Coleman's mouth opened, then closed. Sheldon continued his tone, measured but piercing. Tech Trend's Tanaka family started in 1965, rooted in Singapore's post-independence resilience. They'll expect gifts honoring their legacy, not flashy bribes. Ms. Lee follows Indian-British traditions, direct, no-nonsense, punctual to the second. She'd see elaborate ceremonies as time-wasting. He paused, letting his words sink in. "I negotiated the 2019 Singapore Trade Framework, Mr. Coleman. I mediated Ms. Lee's Eurobank dispute in 2020. Any other concerns?" The boardroom was a graveyard of stunned faces, executives shifting uncomfortably in their leather chairs. A flashback pulled Sheldon back to 2022, the day his State Department job vanished in a budget cut. He'd applied to 200 positions, consulting firms, universities, corporations, all rejecting him as overqualified or too specialized. A 2024 lawsuit against a tech giant came to mind. Black professionals over 50 faced systemic hiring bias, their resumes discarded for fit issues. Sheldon had lived that rejection, his Ph.D. from Howard and Yale masters reduced to a driver's paycheck. But now, standing before Horizon's board, he was no longer invisible. He was undeniable. Elizabeth seized the moment, her voice cutting through the silence. Sheldon handled today's meeting flawlessly. His credentials, State Department citations, lead negotiator for the Asian-Pacific Economic Framework, speak for themselves. She pulled up a document on the conference screen, a presidential commendation for Sheldon's role in averting a 2018 U.S.-Asia trade war. Coleman's face paled, but marketing director Susan Hayes piped up, her tone cautious. It's not just qualifications. It's appearances. The board expects a certain image. Elizabeth's glare could have shattered glass. You mean someone who doesn't look like a driver? The lesson was stark. Corporate skepticism isn't just doubt. It's a wall built on bias, blocking talent from rising. Companies lose billions overlooking people like Sheldon, assuming a uniform defines worth. A 2024 case flashed in Elizabeth's mind. A tech firm tanked after ignoring a black engineer who later launched a rival startup. The cause? Blindness to internal talent. The effect? A company fighting for survival, now saved by the man they'd dismissed. Sheldon's rise wasn't just personal, it was a wake-up call for Horizon's culture. As the room teetered on the edge of acceptance, Coleman leaned back, his voice softer but still pointed. Elizabeth, where has he been working for 3 years? Her face flushed the truth, a bitter pill. Driving me to coffee meetings, she admitted, her voice low. While we learned nothing about him. Sheldon met her eyes, a flicker of sadness in his smile. I was offered a janitor's job last week, he said quietly. Same company, different building. I almost took it. The board gasped, the weight of their oversight crashing down. Elizabeth's resolve hardened. She wasn't just defending Sheldon. She was rewriting Horizon's future. The boardroom fell silent. Sheldon's revelation hanging heavy. He'd saved the merger, but could he shift a company rooted in tradition? As Elizabeth prepared to double down on her vision, the stage was set for a triumph that would redefine Horizon and Sheldon's legacy. The boardroom of Horizon Innovations glowed under Atlanta's twilight skyline, but the real light came from Sheldon Parsons's quiet resolve. The tech trend global merger, a $1.5 billion lifeline, had just been signed. 250 jobs saved. Horizon pulled back from the brink of bankruptcy. Sheldon, once the invisible driver, stood as the architect of this victory, his flawless navigation of Mandarin Japanese and Hindi, turning skeptics into believers. Elizabeth Harper, her voice steady with newfound conviction, addressed the room. Sheldon Parsons is now Executive Vice President of Global Strategy, with a $10 million cultural strategy division under his leadership. The executives, once doubtful, erupted in applause, but Sheldon's eyes held a deeper truth. This was more than a promotion. It was a reclamation of his worth. As the room buzzed with handshakes and congratulations, Sheldon's mind drifted to a memory from 2017 negotiating a trade deal in Mumbai. He'd bridged cultural divides with a single phrase, earning a nod from a CEO who'd later become his mentor. Now he'd done it again, not for nations, but for Horizon. Ms. Lee, Tech Trends leader, approached him, her eyes warm with respect. "Mr. Parsons, your understanding of our values saved this deal. We'd be honored to collaborate again." She handed him a sleek pen, a family heirloom etched with her grandfather's initials, a gesture of trust that silenced the room. Sheldon bowed his heart, swelling with pride. Elizabeth seized the moment, her voice ringing with purpose. "Sheldon will also lead the Sheldon Parsons Initiative, a program to find displaced talent people like Maria Lopez, our former receptionist, now our legal counsel with a law degree from Georgia State." The board nodded, their skepticism replaced by awe. A 2025 news story flashed in Elizabeth's mind. A tech firm tripled its innovation after hiring overlooked talent like a janitor turned engineer. Horizon was now that story. The cause of their near collapse. A culture blind to its own people. The effect, a new era led by Sheldon's vision of seeing talent everywhere. A flash forward showed Sheldon in his new corner office, 3 monitors alive with feeds from Singapore, Mumbai, and Berlin. His cultural strategy division had already closed a $50 million deal by catching a cultural misstep in a Korean contract. Maria Lopez, now a confident lawyer, stopped by to thank him. "You saw me when no one else did," she said, her eyes shining. Sheldon smiled, thinking of his son Jamal, whose law school dreams were now secure. He'd called Jamal that morning, his voice breaking with joy. "Son, your tuition's covered. Become the lawyer you were born to be." Jamal's laughter through the phone was a melody of hope. The lesson was clear. Transformation starts with one person's courage to be seen. Companies stagnate when they ignore the brilliance in their mailrooms, reception desks, or driver's seats. A 2024 case study proved it. Firms embracing diverse talent saw 20% higher profits. Sheldon's rise wasn't just a win for Horizon, it was a blueprint for change, a challenge to look beyond titles and uniforms to the human potential beneath. As the celebration wound down, Elizabeth pulled Sheldon aside, her voice low. "I found your file in HR. You applied for a strategy role 3 years ago. I rejected it without reading it." Her eyes glistened with shame. "I almost lost you and Horizon because I didn't look." Sheldon's breath caught the sting of that rejection resurfacing. But he met her gaze, his voice steady. "You're looking now, Ms. Harper. That's what matters." The room didn't know it, but that moment cemented a partnership that would redefine Horizon's future. The boardroom glowed with possibility, but Sheldon's work was far from done. As he prepared to address a documentary crew about the Sheldon Parsons Initiative, a bigger mission loomed to change not just Horizon, but the world's view of hidden talent. Could his story inspire a movement? The final chapter was about to unfold. The Horizon Innovations boardroom, once a battlefield of doubt, now hummed with a quiet energy as a documentary crew set up their cameras. Sheldon Parsons stood by the window, Atlanta's city lights twinkling below, a reminder of the world waiting to hear his story. 6 months had passed since the $1.5 billion Tech Trend merger saved Horizon, and Sheldon, now executive vice president, had transformed the company. His cultural strategy division was thriving, closing $400 million in deals by bridging cultural gaps others missed. But Sheldon's mission stretched beyond Horizon's walls. The Sheldon Parsons Initiative was sparking a movement connecting displaced talent baristas with PhDs, janitors with engineering degrees, to companies desperate for their skills. Sheldon turned to the camera, his voice warm but commanding. Right now, someone's serving your coffee who speaks 4 languages. Someone's cleaning your office who designed bridges. Someone's driving your Uber who once negotiated peace deals. His words carried the weight of his own journey from a driver dismissed as the help to a leader reshaping corporate America. He shared a story, a cashier at Horizon, Tasha, a former coder, now led their AI team after Sheldon spotted her debugging a laptop during a break. "I saw her potential," he said, "because someone finally saw mine." Elizabeth Harper stepped beside him, her presence no longer commanding, but collaborative. The Sheldon Parsons Initiative has placed 1,000 professionals in roles they deserve, she said, her voice thick with pride. But this isn't just our story, it's yours. A 2025 viral story flashed in her mind. A fast food worker in Chicago, a former software engineer, became a tech executive after a manager asked about his past. Horizon was leading a revolution, proving that talent hides in plain sight. The cause of so much wasted potential. A world too quick to judge by titles. The effect, a chance to build a future where everyone is seen. Sheldon's eyes locked on the camera. Tomorrow, talk to someone you'd normally overlook. The barista, the security guard, the delivery driver. Ask about their dreams, their skills. Make an introduction. Write a recommendation, share their story. He paused, his voice softening. Small actions create big change. Elizabeth nodded. We started the Sheldon Parsons Initiative to connect talent with opportunity, but the real change happens when you choose to look deeper. A montage played social media posts of people sharing stories of hidden talent. A teacher turned Uber driver, a nurse with a law degree tagged "See the Unseen." The lesson was undeniable. Worth isn't measured by a paycheck or a uniform, it's revealed by character. Companies and communities thrive when they stop dismissing and start discovering. Sheldon's phone buzzed, a call from his son Jamal. He stepped into his office, the city lights framing him. "Hey, sweetheart, how's law school?" Jamal's voice was electric. "Dad, I got the public defender internship. I'm going to fight for people like you fought for me." Sheldon's eyes glistened, his heart full. "That's my boy," he said, his voice breaking. "Your mom would be so proud." The camera lingered on Sheldon, a man who'd turned pain into purpose. As the documentary wrapped, Elizabeth handed Sheldon a small box. Inside was a framed photo of his old driver's license next to the heirloom pen from Ms. Lee. "This is who you were," she said, her voice trembling, "and who you will always be, a man who changes lives." Sheldon stared at the photo, then at Elizabeth. "I wasn't the only one who changed," he said softly. "You did too." The crew caught their exchange, a moment of raw partnership proof that second chances transform not just people but entire systems. The screen glowed with a montage of everyday workers, baristas, drivers, cleaners, each with a story waiting to be told. Sheldon's voice returned steady and urgent. If this story moved, you hit that subscribe button for The Black Tale, where we share tales of resilience and triumph every week. Like this video if you believe talent exists everywhere. Comment below with a time you discovered hidden potential, maybe your coworker, your neighbor, or even yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it and tag #SeeTheUnseen to join the movement. Let's build a world where no one's gifts go unnoticed. Together we can change lives one story at a time.